Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to, if statistics of previous platformer revivals are to be believed, what will be the second to third next platformer to get a big revival.
I genuinely would be okay with this. For reasons we will explain later.
So, what's the story, Mr. Gex?
It all started so simply. I had just finished my usual morning routine of nude funkercise, fired up the Barcalounger, grabbed a quick bite to eat, and prepared to watch some serious tube.
Yum.
Oh, yummy.
Little did I know, my
what's wrong with
snack
the remote?
was sent by Rez.
Ooh.
This just in, Rez is now a DoorDash delivery serviceman. Wow.
And
I mean, how do you think he was able to get that fly all the way into Gex's house?
And now that he has eaten that thing, I guess he's now left himself susceptible to Rez's whims.
Pretty much, straight from the big screen.
Oh boy. Oh boy. That's like surprisingly visceral.
Also, for those of you that grew up with this game back in the mid-90s, tell us if that gave you the occasional nightmare.
No, but the 3D model from, I think, Gex 2 did. But, yeah. So, in terms of the lovable fashion of platformer character design, such as Mad Libs, of a quick, fast-talking gecko who travels through the realms of the television. Welcome to Gex.
Yep, the very original, straight from the mid-90s, and I do mean that quite literally, because this came out in 1995, originally as a sort of last-ditch effort to save whatever sort of, pretty much to save the 3DO console, as it were, because I do remember Gex being sort of a poster boy for it back in those days, but everyone mostly remembers the game straight from the PlayStation, considering I think that's where it was the most popular, and the eventual sequel to this game, Enter the Gecko, pretty much was a headliner for that system specifically.
Right.
Makes sense. So
yeah, we are playing as Gex, a pretty much a TV-loving freak who has probably the most ridiculous backstory that you could ever give a mid-90s cartoon protagonist, so much so that I can't even recite it word for word because of how detailed it is. All you really need to know is that, well, he loves TV, has a very big, TV set and whatnot. The evil Rez has pretty much taken over the media dimension and has pretty much captured Gex and sent him straight to the media dimension to potentially make him his next big poster boy for his campaign to conquer the entire media dimension as we know it.
Ooh.
Actually, yeah, now I think about it, it actually kind of reminds me a bit of Deadlocked in that regard of he wants us to be the next big star and must put us through many tests.
Needs his color.
And get used to that because he is almost as bad as Bubsy, at least in terms of the very touchy, very dated one-liners.
Yeah, very much so. Like, that's pretty much the whole gimmick behind Gex, is that he was pretty much made right in the at the near end of the 90s era of animal mascots with attitude, and his whole gimmick is pretty much not only supplying said sass, but also quoting pretty much anything that was prominent back in the 90s.
Even I Am Iron Man, which I don't think that was ever, at this point, at the time this was made, I don't think that was ever even uttered as like a character unless there was some animated thing with Iron Man I wasn't aware of back in the day.
Well, there was like the Iron Man cartoons in... Well, of course, there's like the old, like, 60s sort of Hanna-Barbera-esque cartoons, and there was like an Iron Man series in the 90s.
Fair enough. And, bonus warp area. Also, could I please explain Gex's backstory, because it is just as fascinating to me.
Go ahead.
Go right ahead. I'm pretty much my whole shtick with Gex is pretty much going to be hopping and bopping, collecting all the golden flies I come across, and also slurp up some these random little balls that can do certain things, like give you 1-ups, health, or even the occasional big tier power-up.
Yep, and the main thing we're after in this game are remotes.
Yep, TV remotes, which are pretty much required to access new levels.
They're like jiggies.
In a matter of speaking, yes. Speaking of which, here's our first one.
Mine.
Now then, about that really convoluted backstory that Gex has.
If we ever get a remake, they better copy it to a T. Gex is a smart aleck, wisecracking gecko who lives with his family in Maui, Hawaii. He spends his days with his friends, surfing, playing the ukulele, and throwing poi parties down on the beach with the local lady lizards. Then his father died.
Wow.
After that, he began to watch massive amounts of TV to get over the tragedy. At some point after this point, so at this point the father's death is kind of like freaking inconsequential, because at some point when he was watching TV, his great uncle then passed away and left an inheritance of $20 billion to Gex.
Gex specifically?
Yes. He inherits over $20 billion from his deceased great uncle, and what he spent all that money on... Oh, shut up. What he spent all that money on was either, like... I believe it was a lot of food and drink, but most specifically, the biggest thing he bought was that massive television set that we saw at the very beginning of the game.
And remember, this was like back in the mid '90s, where we didn't have flat screens back then, or at least they weren't exactly commercial.
Yeah, we never questioned this.
Time to call the maids.
And beyond that, we learned later that he has his own thing called the Gex Cave. That's not until the second and third games, I don't think. And
I do recall that being a thing in the third game. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. So in the third game, he gets his own like hideaway. This game was, as you can already imagine from what we were talking about, it was very much one of those things where it's like, come up with it first, think about it later. And the only other big thing I can say, voice acting wise, is that Gex, for all of these games, if we cover them all at some point, he was voiced by Dana Gold in all of them.
Yep, he's a mid-90s comedian who, as far as I'm concerned, well, he voiced Gex, and I don't know him for much else.
Well, funny thing is that, like, that's his voice actor in the US. Apparently in Britain, he had a different actor.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, in the PAL region, every Gex game started a different actor.
Who really gave a very posh performance for Gex, so much so it almost feels out of character.
It definitely gave me a... Right? Oh, we have a boss?
This is actually a bonus minigame. They're actually pretty hard to find, but basically they just want you to do a certain, like, more often than not, you just gotta whack a whole bunch of stuff under a certain criteria, like whack these Frankies with skulls. Don't get hit yourself, otherwise that pretty much ends it. If you do manage to hit a certain amount within the time limit and survive, you do earn like a certain amount of lives. Though, don't worry too much about that, though, considering the fact that this game actually spoon feeds you lives pretty frequently.
I was gonna say we're doing pretty okay, given we're already into level 2 here.
I want to say, sorry, just real quick, because we were talking about like the different actors he's had and whatnot. If by some spur of luck, if they do decide to revive Gex and they can't get his original actor back, unfortunately, you know who I think would probably make a pretty decent Gex?
Who?
If they really want to lean in on like the veteran comedian aspect of the character, John Mulaney. He's Spider-Pig.
He was Spider-Pig.
Oh.
I could see that. I actually could very much see that. If not him, I would have gone with Chris Pratt as my second option. No, okay, third, and I hate the fact that in and of itself is now a meme. We haven't even seen the trailer yet. One day we will. Hey, Freddy. Goodbye, Freddy. That's not Freddy.
That's
Freddy.
Jason.
Jason.
Yeah.
Actually, now that I think about it, it's literally Freddy. It's literally Jason if he was wearing Freddy's sweater.
Yeah, oh my god, the claw. Oh, then that must have been the gag they were doing, combining them. If not that, I was gonna say he also looked like Splatterhouse.
Oh yeah, Rick Taylor.
Yeah.
Complete with that sexy terror mask, voiced by Jim Cummings. Only in the reboot.
Yeah, only in the reboot.
What a weird game that was, and a very depressing ending too.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, depressing because weren't they originally banking on that thing having a sequel?
I think so.
Maybe. I mean, granted, the original game had a sequel. Two of them, actually.
I believe they were hoping that would get a sequel, but yeah, it just didn't.
Oh yeah, I guess I should mention real quick that while we were talking about Gex's very riveting backstory, I was able to acquire a specific type of bug that can give Gex flame breath.
Oh, and nice. I see. It works like a Mario thing, where as long as we don't take damage, we have this firepower forever.
Yep, and I was able to eat up another one on top of that, so I'll at least get to keep this thing for like 2 more hits.
You have like 8 points of health. How is this game hard yet?
Well, if you're not careful, like, see all that dripping water down there? That's instant kill.
Oh, jeez.
Like, I imagine Gex is one of those games where it's like, if you're just, like, going about it, like, riskfully, it's fine. It's trying to... It's kind of like Yoshi's Island in a sense of, like, it's trying to collect everything where the game's difficulty lays.
Which...
To some degree, yes.
Which are we... Which do we want to try and collect everything, or does this game really matter about that?
I will say this much, I don't intend on really showing off this game's secret world, Planet X, which is pretty much... well, naturally, it's the game's end-game bonus world that requires you to find secret remotes in certain levels that the game doesn't even tell you if they're located there or not.
Oh, that sucks. There goes.
Damn it, Frankie.
I was gonna say, also, in this next level, I was gonna ask if you could show us off some of Gex's moveset, but for now, is there only ever gonna be one remote per level?
Some of them will have two.
Okay.
Blech.
Oh, hey.
Reminds me of Ed tapping his birthday pig.
What?
Trust me, some of these quotes can, especially for those that did not grow up in the 90s, might come off as blank noise.
Yep. This is basically what you do: is you every level has a remote that you use to unlock the next level, and then we just gotta get all the way to that big TV. How many worlds are there in this game?
There are about 5 in the game.
Welcome to the New York City Mass Transit System.
6 if you also count Planet X.
Fair enough. Okay.
It's tail time.
Oh, that's right. Another thing regarding Gex that might see that's a tad on the infamous side for those that grew up with the PlayStation or Saturn version. The original 3DO version had a save feature, which will require you to find a VHS tape and complete the level with it. For the later ports of this game, they don't have the save feature. Instead, they have your dinky little password system
that you still can't get unless you find the VHS tape.
Right.
And
either get the VHS tape, or if you're willing to make the effort, just get to the very end of the world and beat the level's boss.
Okay.
At least then they'll give you a VHS tape, no questions asked.
Nice. Go ahead, Hype.
I was just about to say, the way you described it, unless there's a detail I'm missing, that sounds not entirely dissimilar to how the OG Crash 1 did saving.
Kind of, yeah, except technically Crash did it both ways.
Because I figured they would always give you a password at least, and then it was more so a continue point. But okay, so as far as Gex movement here, we have it looks like this climbing thing is already pretty nice.
Oh, it's literally the most defining feature of Gex, aside from this tail time.
Fair. And then you have a pogo jump, a la Scrooge.
That's a spot.
Yep, and you have your tongue, which can pretty much lick up it, and most, if not any, collectible. And again, if you manage to get one of those power-ups that allow you to, oh Jesus.
Oh yeah, that was too much power for any one gecko to have.
That didn't last, but yeah, among the many power-ups you can get are a whirlwind, which makes you invincible, or what I think I just did earlier, which allowed me to run super freaking fast. Also, Polaroid cameras are your checkpoints.
Fair enough. And then I saw we had a fire. We saw that fireball power from before, and aha, what's this? Oh, more. Oh, fireball and invincible.
Well, the invincibility is gone now.
Oh.
Sorry, Mr. Presley.
Okay. As far as the humor is concerned, I'm sure that it worked for the time it came out. I never knew. Darn. I never knew. I'll admit that I did not have this game growing up, but
me neither.
I assume it had a follow-up. Oh, nice.
Oh, it did. 2 of them actually.
Oh, sorry, not follow.
First
Sorry.
one,
Yeah. But we continue your phrase. Continue your phrase as well.
The first one is probably the most well-known game in the entire franchise, Gex, Enter the Gecko, which I do believe also was the first of the trilogy to get an N64 version.
And then there's Gex 3, which I did remember looking at Gex 3, which had, out of nowhere, a full-motion video woman you were trying to save.
Yes, Agent Extra, who, if I remember correctly, was played by a Playboy model.
That seems about right.
That does add up.
And I mean, granted, that was like right around the time when they were really trying to play up the more raunchy nature of the Gex franchise, because this is by no means like a totally kid-friendly franchise. Like, I mean, sometimes you'll hear Gex literally utter the words, "I'm hungry, damn it!"
Oh boy, that's how hungry he is.
And that was the last thing he ever said.